Welcome back to the Weekend Primetime. I'm Elise Jordan alongside Antonia Hilton and Ayman Mohyeldin. It is T-minus 5 hours until we begin day 5 of the government shutdown with no end in sight. And one man in particular has emerged as a central figure in the drama, Russell Vought, director of the Office of Management and Budget, who is overseeing federal layoffs. He also happens to be one of the authors of the Project 2025 Republican Policy Playbook. Trump even referred to Vought as, quote, he of Project 2025 fame, despite the fact that he and many Republicans and some of our media peers spent the last year denying that the president had any involvement with Project 2025. Watch.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
Project 25 has no relation to the Trump campaign.
Project 2025 has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Trump campaign.
Project 2025 has been discredited by President Trump, and I disavowed it.
You know that Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025. He says that is not his campaign plan.
As you know, I am a former prosecutor. His DNA is all over it.
Joining us now, Maya Wiley, civil rights attorney and former assistant U.S. attorney, and Basil Smikle, MSNBC political analyst and professor of practice at Columbia School of Professional Studies. Okay, Basil, I have to ask you, what went wrong with branding Project 2025 as an actual Trump initiative by Democrats during the last cycle? It's amazing that there's that much. They pushed back so hard, and did it just not stick?
No, I think Democrats did a pretty good job of talking about what was in Project 2025. We've talked about it, and I remember saying, you know, it's an instruction manual. It's not just a guidebook. They are telling you chapter and verse what they're going to do. And I distinctly remember, and many others started to talk about this, that it's not a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan. It was a 180-day plan. This was their bureaucratic shock and awe, probably because they knew they wouldn't have forever to implement all of this stuff, but they needed to do as much as they can, as bad as they could get in a shorter period of time because of potential pushback. So, yeah, I think Democrats knew and talked about it. 922 pages. A good chunk of this country just ignored it because there was an appetite. Well, a couple of things. There was an appetite for political disruption. Didn't want to vote for a black woman, and a whole lot of other stuff that we can continue to talk about. But I don't want to be. I don't want to say that Democrats didn't bring it to people's attention.
I think that was actually one of the successful things they did in the administration, in the campaign, the Harris campaign did, was to, and I think that's what forced them to distance.
Be so much on the record.
Yeah, to be.
I was out on the campaign trail for MSNBC, and voters would bring it up. It wasn't number one,
right?
But usually by 2 or 3, they would say, and I saw a little bit about that Project 2025 thing. It sounds really creepy.
Yeah.
That's what I would
and I'll just say, I'm sorry, just favorite, because I'll probably forget this. Taraji P. Henson spoke about it at the BET Awards, one of the biggest nights for the culture, and she looked right into the camera and talked about it.
Maya, what was it like for you watching that montage that Elise just played?
And where we are now.
Lies and the liars tell them. I mean, first of all, we knew he was lying when he said it on the campaign trail. We knew it.
Yeah.
And we kept saying, of course he knows it. These are a whole bunch of the people who authored it came from Trump 1 administration. And Kevin Roberts, made very clear that, this is a nonpartisan blueprint. We want anyone to, but it is to enact Trumpism. They were very explicit that it was about Trumpism and that the new conservatism is Trumpism. And so I think the issue wasn't whether people, they had to also retract it because all the polls were showing. If you told people the substance, you didn't have to say Project 2025. How do you feel about closing the Department of Education?
Yeah.
How do you feel about just firing 25,000 workers who work for federal government? People were like, what? How do you feel about anyone who says, the kinds of, like, turning the Department of Justice into a criminal, into an operation that looks for voters to charge with crimes? Everybody was going, oh, yeah, no, not that.
And also, I was going to say really quickly, the fact that they're using Project 2025 right now as a fear tactic, right? As to say, oh, you guys, you want to shut down the government, you're about to get Project 2025, is a tell, right? It's a kind of a tell of how they actually see Project 2025. It was never about building the country. It was never about progress. It was about breaking things and specifically putting this country on a track to authoritarian rule, because that's what they were afraid of in 2025. It's not in the campaign. It's not like they came out and said, like, no, you guys are misunderstanding. Project 2025 is about a renaissance and rebirth and whatever. It wasn't about that. They knew that it was about fear. They knew it was about destroying the government. And now they're using it, literally using it as a tactic against Democrats to say, okay, you're shutting down the government. We're about to unleash Project 2025.
Can I ask what you two think of how, just a little moment of self-reflection, our industry covered Project 2025 at the time? I mean, obviously, reporters are put in a position where they have to say, well, this is what Project 2025 says, but J.D. Vance just says they have nothing to do, you know, that, and you saw some members of the media doing that in that clip, too. Look
you
at
asking
that.
me? Or you
Everybody. You know, this is a table. We all, but I'll start with Maya and Basil.
Well, I remember when Joy Reid pulled the book out, showed the book. She went on tour with the book. So there were some folks in the media who were doing everything in their power to ensure that people understood there was this blueprint and it was outrageously extremist. And if you read what was in it, you'd be disturbed. And it was Donald Trump's administration's blueprint, right? And so you did have some of this happening. But yeah, the both sidesism, well, they say no. And also, I think the reporting on it in a way that distances the actual impacts of what Project 2025 is. I mean, and that's on all of us, right? I mean, there's a difference between saying they might shut the Department of Education to your kid is not going to be able to get their rights vindicated if they're being bullied in school because they're black, or if they're being bullied in school because they have a disability. They're not going to be able to get the paraprofessional so that they can get the learning supports they need. And if the Department of Justice decides it doesn't like how you're helping voters vote, it can charge you with crimes because it doesn't like who you're helping to vote. If you say it that way, and I think the part of the thing that happens in political campaigns and journalism is it becomes more political than people. It becomes more about polls than impact. And that was a very big problem across the campaign.
And I would just say very quickly, I agree with everything you said. And one of the things that I know had been the case over the last several years with the country got a big civics lesson. Right? We got to know what a Secretary of State actually does, right? Because we started to do exactly that.
You know, when a president tries to change the results of an election,
but that's exactly
you
right.
call the Secretary of State.
You call the Secretary of State because, and to your point, we got to understand both process, but then a lot of us started to talk more about how this actually impacts people, what happens on the ground, what happens to the actual election worker when they're at home, right, after the election. Like, we started to really understand the impact of these decisions on people's lives. And I that probably came too late, but it did happen at some point. I really just go back to 2016 because that's when the both-isms really took effect. And we had a big problem then extricating what he said from what we really should be thinking about what he said.
I was going to say really quick about the journalism issue. I think one of the biggest problems in this country is that journalists have a tendency to say, they say, and that's journalism for them. And the truth is, if somebody tells you it's raining outside, your job as a journalist is not to say, person X says it's raining. It's stick your damn head out the window and tell us if it's raining or not. And if it's not, you come back and you say, that person is lying. It's not raining outside. But we don't have that. And we saw that in that clip there, and we've seen it a few times where journalists would be like, Donald Trump says that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. Stop saying that. And let's give kudos to Kamala Harris, because that was an amazing answer at that time and called the BS out in real time.
That's right.
Well, Maya, Basil, stick around with us.